Good morning, guys. I am going to be talking to you this morning about levels of organization. And these are going to be living things. So we're going to be taking notes in our journal. So if you don't have your journal with you, go ahead and grab it. You can pause me and we'll get started. We're going to be talking about levels of organization. Now, we've been talking a lot about cells and living things on a cellular level, but there are bigger and smaller things than cells. And so let's kind of talk about that. And I'm going to use an example of like music, right? On my way to work, I like to listen to music, right? My daughter usually controls the playlist. But eventually we get all the way down to songs, right? And I have my favorite songs. And then those songs are on a particular album, right? A particular, like if my favorite song ever was Church Bells by Carrie Underwood, then that would be on her Storyteller album, right? And so then you've got all of the songs that Carrie Underwood sings, or T Swift. And then you maybe got a whole bunch of playlists on your Spotify or on your phone or your Amazon Music. And so there's different levels to your song organization, right? You hear a song, but you might have it on an album or you might have it just on a playlist, right? There's different levels of how things are organized. So living things are organized similarly, right? Within nature, there are divisions of labor. So just to remind you guys, remember if it's underlined in a PowerPoint for me, I need you to write it in your journal because it's important, okay? So within living things, there are divisions of labor. There are separations of work. Just like here at school, there are separations of work, right? You don't see me serving you guys lunch because that's not my area of expertise, right? You'd be getting like an Uncrustable every day. You see me teaching science because that's my area that I'm divided into the labor force in, right? There's different people who have different jobs at the school, right? There's helper teachers, there's custodians, there's Miss Center. You definitely don't see me going and coaching the football team because that's not in my division of labor, right? I have a different area of expertise. I've got a different area that I'm good at. And so when we're dividing living things, that is exactly the same way. The job of the smallest thing builds on the next level. Each part has a specific job, and that's what we call division of labor, because each part is doing a specific thing to keep that organism alive, right? And so each part has a job to do, and each part does its special job. It works together in that harmony and that homeostasis, that body balance for all of the parts to work together. So every part of the body is necessary. Every part of the organism is necessary because the job of the smallest thing builds onto the next level. Now, these you can think about kind of like stair steps, right? You're going up different levels, and those different levels are based on where that organism or where that living thing fits into the world, right? This is referred to as levels of organization. And we're going to talk about levels of organization from the most simple, right, all the way down to the atomic level, the smallest particle of matter, right, the non-living things. But those non-living things also make up living things, right, when they're organized in a specific way according to the levels of organization. So let's start with an atom, right? You talked about this maybe last year, maybe when you were in 5th grade. An atom is the smallest unit of matter. We're all made of atoms. Everything, whether it's a living thing or a non-living thing, all things are made of matter, right? And all things are made of atoms because they're made of matter. They make up all of the elements, right? They make up carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and these elements link together and bond together into groups. And these groups of atoms are called molecules. And these are vital things for life, right? Like water, right? We need water, and water is a type of molecule, okay? Molecules join together by bonding chemically, right? Like holding hands or connecting. And when they join, they can make big molecules, right? Water is a molecule, right? Very simple. It's only 3 atoms. But when you look at proteins or carbohydrates or amino acids, these are larger molecules. These are macromolecules. And macro just means large, right? It just means big, okay? So we've got molecules, which are small things that we need, right? And then we've got macromolecules, and these macromolecules are vital for life. There's a lot of them, or what we call organic molecules, that form living things. Biomolecules are macromolecules, and biomolecules are the things that help cells form organelles, right? What we've been studying these organelles for the past few weeks, and these organelles are made up of these macromolecules, right? Remember, we've been talking about how the cell's main job is to make proteins because it's made of protein, right? And so these proteins form these organelles, right? These small parts that do different jobs, these little organs like the nucleus, like the mitochondria, like chloroplasts, things that have a specific job, right? You don't see chloroplasts running the show in the nucleus, or like the nucleus does, right? The nucleus runs the show because it has the DNA, those set of instructions for what the cell is supposed to do. So remember, we're starting with non-living things, right? Atoms, not living. Molecules, not living. Macromolecules, not living, right? Organelles, not living. They can't survive on their own, right? What's the first level that can survive on its own? The cell, right? The cell is the building block of all living things, right? And so if it's alive, it's made of cells, right? Whether it's prokaryotic cells or eukaryotic cells, all living things are made of cells. The cell is the building block of living things. This is where life begins. This is where living things start. And there are millions of different types of cells. Here's a couple of examples of cells that you have in your body. Do you maybe recognize them? Probably not, because we're not looking at our cells under a microscope all the time, right? But on the left, these are nerve cells. These are the cells that are in your brain and in your muscles, helping you move, and in your eye to help you see. There's all kinds of nerve cells all over your body. And on the right, we have skin cells. These are like our little armor that's covering our body that protects us from things that are outside of our body. Now, if we've got a whole bunch of cells, we have tissues, right? Tissues are groups of cells that are similar in structure that are joined together to form a tissue. A group of cells working together is a tissue, right? This applies to all living things, right? We have tissues in our body. We've got skin tissue, right? If you've ever been to the doctor and had a blood sample taken, guess what? Blood is a type of tissue, a liquid tissue. You've got brain tissue, right? You've got muscle tissue. You've got intestinal tissue inside your gut. All of those tissues are working together to perform a specific job. Now, do you have muscle tissue inside your brain? No, because you don't need muscle there. Muscle does a specific job. It's in charge of moving. So we don't have muscle tissue inside our brain because it does a different job, right? That's those levels of organization. The way that we separate out the work in the body is organized on a cellular level, and then those cells form together to make tissues. And what do tissues bond together to make? When you've got a group of tissues, what do you have? So a group of cells makes tissue. A group of tissue makes an organ, because each of these specific tissues are found in specific organs, right? Plants also have tissues. What types of tissues do plants have? We've been talking about it, right? We talked about the leaf structure. That's a tissue, right? That leaf is an organ on a plant, an organ specialized for taking in carbon dioxide and sunlight, right? So that it can go through photosynthesis. So plants have tissues as well. Oh, there goes my light. Now let me turn my lamp on. Okay. So when we have a bunch of tissues that work together, they form an organ. And you've got tons of organs in your body. Things like bones, your stomach, lungs, your liver, all different types of organs make up your body, right? There are tons of organs in your body. You've got your kidneys, which are helping you filter out your blood. You've got your liver that's helping you remove toxins. You've got your heart that's keeping everything pumping. You've got your lungs that gets oxygen. You've got so many different organs in your body that help you to do specific things, right? So these groups of tissues form organs. And what do we call it when we have a group of organs? A group of organs that works together. Well, we already said this, right? Plants have organs too. So what do we call a group of organs that would work together? An organ system, right? An organ system is like the circulatory system or the respiratory system or your integumentary system. This is a group of organs that work together to perform a particular job, right? Your skin, your integumentary system has a specific job, right? To protect you, to keep water inside your body, right? It performs a specific job. You don't see skin tissue inside your lungs, right? Because your lungs have a different job. Their job is to let oxygen and carbon dioxide get exchanged in the really tiny sacs that make it up. So all of these systems have to work together to form our entire body, right? Our entire organism, a living thing. And this can be something that's unicellular, like a bacteria, or it can be something that's multicellular, like us, right? We've got all of these parts. We've got atoms that make up molecules and molecules that make up macromolecules like DNA, right? That's a macromolecule, a really large molecule. The instructions for how your whole body is set up, all contained in that macromolecule of DNA, right? And then that DNA gives instructions to the cell for these organelles and these parts. And then the cell is the smallest thing that can live on its own, right? And then that cell makes up tissues, and then those tissues make up organs, and then those organs make up organ systems, right? Now, just like we have them in our human body, plants have them, right? Plants have atoms and molecules that make up their structure, macromolecules. They've got organelles. Remember, we discussed all the organelles in the plant cell. Those plant cell parts make up plant tissues, like leaf tissue, like epithelial tissue, like your spongy layer that we went over last week when we talked about leaf structure. Organs like the leaf or the stem or the roots, those are all organs for a plant. And then organ systems, that whole system that works together, right? That leaf system that takes in all of that carbon dioxide, all of that sunlight, and turns it into, goes through the process of photosynthesis to turn it into glucose. So all organisms, an entire living thing, are made up of these levels of organization, things that are separated based on the jobs that they do. So we've got something really simple, right? We've got our DNA structure and the nucleus that make up chromosomes, right, in a cellular level, that make up a whole plant, right? So we can go biggest to smallest, or we can go smallest to biggest, right? So if you keep zooming in, you'll eventually get down to the nitty-gritty of each particular cell. So tomorrow, you're going to have an assignment where you're going to sort items on a slide to put them in the correct order. And you want to make sure that you put them in order from smallest, most simple, to largest, most complex. And our smallest, most simple is going to be from the atom, molecule, macromolecule, organelles that make up cells, cells that make up tissues, tissues that make up organs, organs that make up systems, and eventually an organism, right? So feel free to go back through here if you didn't write everything down or if you need to get something else. I hope you guys have a fantastic day, and I will see you again soon.